Welcome, Dr. Payton-Foh. Thank you so much for being our guest. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm happy to do so, and thank you for having me here today. So, I am a mother, I'm a daughter. I am a wife as of 2019. And I'm a researcher, I'm a professor here at UNC Greensboro, and I'm a Southern Black woman. I think that's really important. I think that my upbringing and my experiences living in Eastern North Carolina really has shaped my passions, my interests, and really has brought me to where I am today. I also, when you say tell me a little bit about myself, I'm really proud of being raised by a lot of amazing, resilient Black women. And as I get older, I really think about like my grandmother and how I wish I could talk to her now and lean on her for all of the wisdom that she was trying to provide to me when I was like 5 years old, how I still remember the things that she would tell me. And so, I come from a family of very strong people, but in particular, strong Black women.
And so for our listeners who don't know what it means, what does it mean to be a Southern Black person?
I'm dainty. I'm delicate, but I'm also strong, and I love sweet tea, not iced tea. That's there's I don't put myself in a box, but it is, and I'm sure we'll get into it more throughout our conversations today. But I didn't know what it meant to be a Southern Black woman until I lived other places, and I was able to get to know different people and how their cultural upbringings shape their perspectives, and how, like, as a Southern Black woman, right, I worried about saying y'all because I thought that if I said y'all, people would think, oh, she's not intelligent, right? So we'll get more into it, but simply stated, as a Southern Black woman, I'm dainty. I'm delicate, but I'm also strong.
I love that. And so we did a little bit of stalking and we saw that your Instagram handle is @academically-introverted. And how did that come about?
Oh my goodness. So I have 2 handles. I'm glad you found out. So this was definitely during the pandemic, and I attended a virtual retreat for Black women. And it was really inspirational. We did a lot of deep dives into just our healing. It was actually called the Healing Well Retreat. And we went through a lot of different workshops to try to understand our passions and our next steps. And in one of those workshops, I can't remember all the detail around it, but I discovered that a purpose was to share more. To use different platforms to be vocal. And as an introvert, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't like social media. I'm not that girl. But I challenged myself, and one of the challenges was to set up a more professional Instagram page. And I did a challenge for a week to post on it for every day for a week. And once I posted every day for a week, I stopped posting as frequently, but it was just a challenge to get out there more. And the handle, what was the handle?
Academically introverted.
Exactly. I'm introverted, but yet I'm an academic. And what does that really mean? How can you be introverted and be in a space where you have to get up every day and teach? You have to go to faculty meetings. You have to be a part of a contributing member as a faculty and make decisions and speak up and be voices for those that may or may not be represented at the table. So it is a challenge, and I'm still growing into that role every single day.
Lovely. So what did you do before you started your graduate program, your doctoral program?
Yes. So I am a health educator through and through. So all of my degrees have health education in it. And so when I graduated with my undergrad from East Carolina University, I went straight into the field of public health education. So I worked as a public health educator for several rural health departments. And then I moved into the nonprofit space for a minute before going into my doctoral program. And in all of those programs, it was like health education or health promotion type positions, faith-based positions, or faith-based communities that I would work with to develop and implement and evaluate health programming throughout the state and in certain counties.
And so what sparked your interest in public health?
Didn't really know didn't know there was a name for it, public health, or didn't really know what it meant. But I'm one of those few individuals who found public health pretty early on. When I was in the 7th grade, I was a part of this summer group where we went to different gas stations and we talked about, it was a teen tobacco prevention program. And so we would go to these gas stations and we would give them these cards to remind them to card people to make sure that they were 18 over prior to selling them tobacco products. And I just loved it. It was so much fun. I was like, this is what I want to do. I didn't know how much you got paid or didn't get paid in this field. But I'm like, oh, I really love this. And then I had another opportunity to be engaged in a summer initiative in my hometown. And we were able to explore a lot of different health issues that particularly we were impacted in Berkeley County, which is where I'm from. And it's a very rural area. And I noticed, again, I didn't have the terminology, right? I didn't have health equity. I didn't know the term health disparities. But I knew that my county that at the time only had one high school for the entire county, I knew that we didn't have things that some of my friends in other counties had. And I knew people, when we described where I'm from, people would always talk about what we didn't have. And how that would lead to higher teen pregnancy rates, not having a lot of dentists in the area, not having really good access to quality health care. I saw that and I'm like, why is that? And so that's what led me into public health and wanting to pursue it with an undergrad, and going to graduate school, and now being where I am now.
So you were just telling us a little bit about what sparked your interest in the public health sector, but ultimately what inspired or motivated your decision to go to grad school or to pursue your doctoral degree?
Well, so I'm working in public health, right? And I realized I don't like having to do something and not understanding why I have to do it. And working in public health, and especially working in health departments, you have like public health consultants that work for the state. We were responsible at the local level of creating and then conducting community needs assessments or health assessments. And I just remember the public health consultant saying, you need to collect 300 surveys for like this very rural county. It was Greene County, North Carolina. And I wanted to know why. Why 300? What's so special about that number? And then the epidemiologist at the time was like, you can do 300 surveys or you can conduct 10 focus groups. So again, I'm like, why? Why do I have to do 10 focus groups? What's so special about 10 versus 5 versus 20? That's just an example of like my curiosity around research. And I wanted to understand where are those numbers coming from? Why does it make a difference? And so that curiosity, that intellectual curiosity, was one of the reasons why I wanted to go back to pursue my PhD. At the time, I was actually already in my master's program. I also realized while I was working in the field, because I was working in public health, but also pursuing my master's in public health, I felt like there was a major disconnect between what I was learning in school around theories and then the actual application of it. It was really, really hard trying to get people to come to your events, your programming in a very rural community where they lack transportation, they don't have daycare. I mean, they're having to choose between, do they want to go to clinic, do they want to get this education, or do they want to keep their jobs? So I really felt like there was such a huge disconnect, and I wanted to be that bridge. I appreciated research. Absolutely, that's why I wanted to know, why are you telling me 300 surveys or 10 focus groups? But I also understood that there's a way of doing it, like that it shouldn't be these separate phenomenons almost of this is what we learn in school, but then when we get out here, it's like, something is not clicking. So I wanted to go back to school to kind of be that bridge.
And how did that decision to go to grad school impact your family?
Well, so at the time I was a single mother. And so I was born and raised in North Carolina, and my child has been with me from all of my degrees, and my decision making, of course, she's always been like really important in what I should do next. I always want to create stability. And so financially, you have to think about, does this make sense? I could also share that at the time, even from undergrad right on up, I was in that era where wasn't a, I forget what it was, economic downturn, where in public health especially, a lot of those positions were soft money. And in my last position, felt like there were threats. It was coming that they were going to take money, and I wasn't going to have a position. So stability is important, but I didn't feel like I had stability at that time in my employment, and I really wanted to pursue the PhD. So I felt like it made the most sense. I talked about it with my family, prayed about it, and really, again, thought about my why, and took that leap and moved out of North Carolina for the first time ever with my daughter.
So where did you go for grad school for your doctoral program?
University of Toledo.
Okay,
Yes,
which
exactly.
is not in the South.
It is not. It is not.
And what region is Ohio?
It is considered the Midwest, but it's like the northeastern part of the Midwest. So very, very different demographically, culturally, I would say. It was different representation. So Bertie County, the county itself is over 60%, I think like 61% Black or African American. That I didn't even realize until after moving away how unique it is, right? And then in my hometown, Lewiston was about the same, or if not more, representation of Black people. And so I went from that to a very, in comparison, a very non-Black space. And that's when I started thinking about what it means to be a Southern Black woman in this not Southern space that's not as representative of the people that look like me.
Did you take your daughter with you?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I did. And that was a different experience too, because it's one thing to be a broke grad student by yourself, but it's definitely different when you are broke with another broke best friend.
Don't I know it?
So then you have to navigate the university system as a student, but then you're also trying to navigate all of the resources and services that could be provided to you and your daughter, who's also entering a very new space in terms of public schools in Toledo at that time.
And so going into your doctoral experience and onto your campus, what was the racial climate like at the university you were at?
Describe the racial climate, especially that first year, as almost quiet. Like it was unspoken. I was the only Black person that first year in the doctoral program, period. And definitely I was the only Black person in my cohort. It was a cohort of 6 of us. One person didn't come back after the first year. And so we didn't talk about race. That changed throughout my years there because probably subsequently after my cohort, there was either 1 or 2 students of color and I'm going to be specifically black people that came into the program, and that's when I think there were more quiet conversations around public health. We talk about health disparities, but there were. Have y'all heard of Midwest Nice?
No.
Midwest Nice is a thing.
Okay.
So you don't talk about things. Everyone to your face is very friendly, right? Because that's their comfort space. So to talk about things that are uncomfortable is not not nice. That's not Midwest Nice. So we just keep it cute and we smile. But when it comes to talking about racial issues or even political issues, you don't talk about those things because that makes people uncomfortable. And so that's what I experienced in the South. I was used to more overt racism. Working in a grocery store and someone, just as an example, it did happen, right? But not to say that this happens all the time. I'm a cashier, and an elderly white man refuses to hand me money, but would put it on the counter. That to me is an example of, being overt. Midwest, no. Very nice. Talk your head off. But that doesn't mean that they don't have biases and prejudices that come out in other ways. And I wasn't used to that. And I didn't know what microaggressions meant either. If I had had that terminology, I might would have picked up on things that needed to be addressed. But at that time, I'm like, that's all in my head, right? That person did not bring up affirmative action just because I was in the room, right? that's not what's going on here. It was just a coincidence, right? So there were definitely things that were happening, but they were very quiet because you want it to be nice. And you want it to, as opposed to really talking about hard issues, you just kind of wanted to sweep that under the rug for the sake of let's just all get along.
And so just to add some context, what was the years that you were in your doctoral program? What was the political climate like in the rest of the U.S. at the time?
So I started in 2011 and graduated the summer of 2014. So at that time, President Barack Obama was president, but was also going through re-election time for him. So he was getting ready to start his second term. And I remember Ohio is a swing state, and that election, it swung, in my opinion, the wrong way. And so I had folks in North Carolina calling me like, what are y'all doing in Ohio? I'm like, it wasn't me.
I have no parts.
So that was who was the president at the time. And again, I felt like there were great years. I was very excited about having Black representation in the office with First Lady. I felt inspired. Also at that time, this is not politically related, but Issa Rae, I found and discovered her and her YouTube series. And she was like my BFF. I don't know why she hasn't called me in real life yet.
Issa?
Yes. But it was something about how she was just describing her experiences as a Black woman and not always being in these Black spaces and being a creative and feeling awkward that really resonated with me during this time of my life. And so I'm trying to get back to your question around the political climate. There were some great things happening. I felt inspired, but yet there was this undertone of, I'm not going to talk about it yet, but not everybody was happy.
And so comparing your experiences to your undergraduate and master's experience, what was that like?
Completely, totally different. And if I had known what my first year, if I had based my decision on moving away and pursuing my PhD in Toledo, Ohio, if I just based it off of that first year, I probably wouldn't have done it. Just because it was very different. And I did move there with my daughter, and just the not getting paid a lot because you're a PhD student, and also, but having a child and having to figure out daycare and things of that nature, it was really, really hard. And I didn't know anybody there. All I had was my cohort who didn't have children. They were, for the most part, single. And so, again, very friendly, but it took time to really get to know them, because I'm trying to manage things that they weren't managing. Not to say that they weren't managing other things, but we weren't managing the same things at the same time. And so just moving away and being that far away from home, the intensity of the work, and really just figuring out, where the heck am I? It took a while, but I'm glad that I stuck with it, because after that first year, when I came back, things started to click. They really did. And I was able to find in that cohort, I can say, like, we were a pretty strong cohort, and we had things that we could do together. And there were still things that we couldn't. And that's when you have to find a way to expand your network. And they may not be in the same state, but I had a really good friend here in Greensboro that was attending A&T, pursuing her PhD at the same time. She became my buddy outside of Ohio and outside of my program. And so expanding your network and having people that I could call on when I felt like there wasn't anybody in my cohort that got what I was going through, that was extremely helpful.
What made you pick Toledo?
I picked Toledo because I knew I wanted to get a PhD in health education. Mm-hmm. And I read an article. At the time, Toledo, their program was a traditional health education program, and it was in the top 10. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, sure. And I talked to the department chair, and he was so warm and welcoming. I disclosed to him that I had a child, because I think that was an insecurity of mine. I didn't want people to limit me, because they're like, well, how are you going to do it as a single parent? Mm-hmm. But I shared that with the department chair, and he sent me emails with like places to look at for apartments. Mm-hmm. He offered that him and his wife could go look. And so I felt that I would have some support, especially from the department chair. So that was, and there was an assistantship. Money is important. Mm-hmm. And I wanted that challenge. I'd never been out of the state. It felt like it was the good thing to do.
Okay. Do you speak a lot about how your cohort became close-knit and you guys were really close. Are you all still close to this day, or?
Well, with social media, you can always
stalk each other.
Yeah, you know what's going on with people just by virtue of being friends on Facebook or following each other on Instagram. I would say out of really the five of us, because five of us actually all ended up kind of matriculating through the program. I have one that's super close with. She attended my wedding. She was also just Erin was just wonderful in the fact that she loved children and my child loved her, and so she supported me in terms of like babysitting, going to cheerleading events. So she was my girl. She's still my girl.
Yeah. Your grad school bestie.
Mm-hmm. And it's time for our ad break. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be right back. Are you a therapist of color struggling to find your place in the mental health world? Sparkle Healing LLC has got you covered. Located in the DC metropolitan area, they focus on helping the helper. Discover their exclusive therapy services designed for therapists and other helping professionals to thrive. Immerse yourself in a supportive community, elevate your practice with expert consulting and supervision, and don't miss their rejuvenating wellness retreats, crafted to replenish your mind and spirit. Sparkle Healing LLC, where therapists find solace, community, and professional growth. Visit them today at www.sparklehealing.com. Tune in to a brighter future.
Welcome back to the Color of Success, the Black academic experience. But all in all, would you say you felt like you belonged in the program? I know you said you were the only Black person in your year, but then, more and more people of color kept coming in. Did you feel like you belonged?
I did. I really, really did. I do remember, though, the first year when I was trying to get a feel for everything, and I think people were, other people were just trying to get a feel for the program. I remember we were taking like a stats class. It was an intro stats class, and all of us, what helped us to be close is that our offices were all together, and so we would study a lot together and prep for the courses that we were teaching. And I did notice, especially that first semester, when it came time to study and ask, like, well, what did you do? How do you do that? No one would ask me, like, wow, Erica, like, how are you figuring this out? What did you get? Until my grades started coming. Now we're all studying together, right? Which was great, which was fine. And but I did notice, like, wow, no one is like coming to me. And why is that, right? And I will never say why, because I don't know definitively why. Mm-hmm. But that was something that I definitely remembered and kind of just stuck in the back of my head. But what helped to bring us together was like physically being in that space and then traveling together. I also learned culturally, right, that sometimes people love going out for coffee or for tea or for, in my case, with my cohort, a beer. And that's when you really get to form relationships. And by the end of my program, we were able to actually cry together. And feelings were hurt because there were ignorant comments that had been made. But we were able to have a level of trust that I think helped us to get through those things as well. But I will say, you asked at the beginning, do I feel like I belonged? Mm-hmm. I definitely did. And I really, overall, feel like I grew and enjoyed my experience. But that was not the case for everyone in that program. And I think that for leaders in academia, you can't just say just because one person had a great experience that you can expect everyone else to. You have to look and understand, how are you supporting all students? And if someone comes to you and they say that they're not having a good experience, you need to try to investigate that and not just say, well, Erica, she's doing great, right? She's thriving. You need to really look into that and see what you can do at the departmental level to make changes so that everyone feels included and that they belong.
Okay.
And so we've touched a little bit about like what your support was throughout your doctoral experience, but what did your self-care look like throughout your doctoral experience?
Oh, why are you asking me that? I didn't learn about self-care until like maybe 3 years ago. It was a hot mess. I know that picked up.
Yeah, for sure.
I still have terrible sleep patterns. Like I really, really did because, my program, my assistantship was a teaching assistantship. Mm-hmm. So the first semester I came in teaching one class, like off gate. Like here is the PhD handbook and here's the course that you'll be teaching, right? And it was a course I had never even taken myself. So I was learning with the students, bless their hearts. Gosh. And so after that, it was 2 courses a semester. And then you're still taking your coursework too. And so if you wanted to do research, which I did, that's just extra. So where are you going to find that time? And my daughter was in the 1st grade, my first year there. So she started off, she was still, she still needed a lot of help. So trying to manage all of that, I don't know when I slept. Like I would put my daughter, I would be in school, I would teach, pick my daughter up, dinner, help her with her schoolwork, a little bit of playtime. Like I remember, I feel like I'm rambling now, but I remember when we first came back home and my mom asked my daughter, like, well, how's everything in Toledo? She told my mama, she was like, everything we eat comes out of a microwave. Like she was, and my child loves to eat, and she's very particular about her cuisine. So I'm like, why did you tell them everything comes out of a microwave? It was rough. It was very, very rough. And so, you put your baby down, and then that's when you do your work and prepare for the next day. So I didn't have a very good self-care plan. I do remember one thing that I did that I still do to this day. I didn't have a lot of time to clean house. But one thing that I tried to do to help me with my anxiety and create balance, I always need my bed. Mm-hmm. It's something about that, just like if nothing else looks good, to have a clean canvas that I can dive into when I can sleep, like that felt really, really good. And then I don't know if this was self-care or just procrastination. When it was time to work on the dissertation, I decided I wanted it to work out every day. But I really do think that was just because I was tired of looking at that blank page.
I feel seen. I feel seen. We started picking up working out as soon as we were like, dissertation, let's work out.
Yep.
This is so true. But it helps, right? All those endorphins and taking care of yourself.
It does. It creates the space, because I remember if I was on the treadmill, like your brain will start wandering, and then you'll actually have some really good ideas that come out of that, and then you can jot those down, and then it would grow. So it wasn't just procrastination. Like it actually gave me the freedom to think, because those endorphins and all that is going, and so it created a space to do that.
And so, thinking about support again and your self-care, what support do you wish you had?
I wish that, and so this is when representation matters, because there also weren't any women of color in the department at the time. And so I loved and adored my mentor too, but he was an older white man. He was married. They didn't have any children. And so some of those struggles with being a single parent, but also at the time I'm reading these articles about how few Black people get tenured, and like they didn't describe it as Black tax, but just the extra service that people of color have to do, and it's invisible work. I'm reading this, but not really being able to share and articulate and get any feedback from anyone in my cohort or even my professors. And when there were conversations that would come to play around race, I don't think that those conversations were held in the best way. So the support, I wish I just had someone to break down some things to me, like, what is Black tax? What do you mean I might have to do extra service? Like, what's a microaggression? Is this happening to me right now? Like, just having that conversation. And something that, again, growing up in predominantly Black spaces that I took for granted is that sometimes just being in a space and someone says something or does something and you can look at them and you don't have to say anything, but like we are on the same wavelength. I miss that. Like I miss just being able to look and like,
Did you see what I just saw?
Did you check that? Those things are really, really nice to have.
And so thinking about your role now as faculty member, do you feel like you do that? Like, are you paying your Black tax, as it were?
I am very appreciative of my colleagues in my department. And I'm especially appreciative of the fact that I have other Black women in my department. I have other women of color in my department. And before I was at the University of UNCG, I worked for 2 years at Ball State University, which is also, I have great experiences. I met great people there, but it was not as racially and ethnically diverse as UNCG. And so again, and it was also still considered the Midwest. So some of the experiences, no one explained to me Black tax. I didn't have that terminology until I attended a fellowship that was for junior faculty who were from, the all of the federal designated terms, underrepresented,
MSI,
all of that, right? So, but it was the first time I was around so many other Black academics, and it was this one gentleman was like, "Oh, that's Black tax. Hold on, what is that? Oh, why am I in this program having to deal with students who were, I don't know if my the colleague said difficult. I don't know what the terminology was, but they just happened to be the few Black students in our undergraduate program at the time that I was being asked to supervise. And and of course I said yes, because if you don't feel like you can supervise them, then I'm definitely going to. But I think if you're in a department, you should be able to serve all of the students, regardless of their background, with quality and care and concern. Just to be frank, I think that we all pay Black tax to varying degrees. And what's most important, though, is do you have the support to help navigate that? And when you are actually being used and abused, do you have tactics and strategies to let that be no more, to negotiate and to stand up for yourself? Because there's some things that I'm going to do just out of the nature of I want this student to have the best experience possible. So I'm going to have to go above and beyond in a way that some of my other colleagues may not even be able to identify that that's something that they need to do. So I put some of that on myself. But when it comes to like being representing on different committees, just because I look a certain way, no. You just have to learn how to. And being in my department, I have mentors and I have colleagues that I can ask, is this really a good opportunity for me? Or is someone just telling me this because they need me in this room and they really don't care if I'm actually making change? I just need to be there for representation purposes, but silent representation.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, but let me not say the issue with Black tax, but with Black tax, a lot of the times it doesn't get counted for things like tenure, right? So how have you been able to navigate that? Or have you had to be creative with the way for things like that?
You do. Oh my goodness, I'm going to forget the author's name, but I strongly recommend the book. And maybe we can look it up, but it's How to Get Tenure Without Losing Your Soul. And so it talks about all of these different ways of how to prepare yourself for tenure and when to say no and when to say yes. It goes over like terminology around what the Black tax is, but you're right. So it's this extra work, and it can mean a lot of different things. It could be having to advise at a higher load for students, being on a lot of different committees. Yes, the Black Academic's Guide to Winning Tenure Without Losing Your Soul. It is on Amazon. I'm sure it's on all of your platforms. Highly recommend purchasing that book because it was a book when I was reading it, I felt seen. And so that Black tax is something that is not counted. It's not counted. So one of the strategies is, how can I make this count? How can I make sure that if I had an extra advising load, that it's reflected in my annual report and I'm getting some type of credit for that? It's being strategic in can I get an award for this extra work that I'm doing so that I can still include that as I won XYZ year award of the year. So I'm going to make it count. Even if you don't value it, I'm going to find a way either in my narratives or in receiving awards or getting media, which I'm very, very bad at, like working with media, because I think self-promotion is something that we have to do, but it's not something that's natural to me. So that's, again, another strategy of getting it to count when otherwise it wouldn't.
Does that tie back to the introvert?
Yes, absolutely.
It's hard. It's hard to be like, self-promoting all the time.
She's also an introvert.
But it is such a necessary skill. And so now it's like, well, how can I do it in a way that's still reflective and genuine and authentic to me? And there's ways of doing that. Like, for example, for me, if I am I realize that I can work with media if I have a community partner and I'm really highlighting what the community is doing, not me. Like, I'm there with them, but it's more about the community. Then I feel more comfortable in that space. But I'm still, I guess, getting credit for it in terms of the institution, because now when I turn in my annual report, I can say, look at, I had 3 articles covered in the media this week. Aren't I awesome?
And so I guess we have a few more questions as we close up. But to start, what do you wish that you knew before starting your doctoral program?
I wish that I knew just how important it is to know thyself. And again, that was advice that I received after I already finished my PhD and I was in a fellowship program with other Black academics, Black and Latinx, Hispanic academics. And the reason why I say that's important is because that is what will center you and will create balance for you if you really know who you are. And I don't think that I had started my journey of knowing who I was until I got to Toledo. And I don't regret that, but that uncertainty and feeling like questioning, like, am I smart enough? Or even like going back to, do I really need to do this right now? I think if I had a better understanding of who I was, I would have stood my ground more, not in like an adversarial way, but I would have, for example, when it was time to graduate, I never thought I was going to be a professor. The PhD, that was not the goal. Like, I wanted to go back and work for nonprofit organizations or research centers. I just knew that the CDC was the bomb.com. Like, I thought I was going to do that, be a CDC public health advisor. But the mentorship that I received at that time was tenure track. That's platinum. That's golden. Like, that's where you need to be, Erica. And I totally believe that life is a journey, and so I'm happy to where I am today. But I totally could have and should have explored other opportunities. I just wasn't sure of myself. So I listened more to people that I respected and were more seasoned than myself than actually listening to that inner voice. Like, do remember what your goals were. Why are you now kind of like, I don't know what I should do type of thing? So knowing yourself creates that balance. And it doesn't mean not to be flexible, but it just means to be reflective and to always remember, why you're here and why you're doing what you're doing and ultimately what you're trying to get out of it.
Do you regret having gone tenure track?
I don't regret it. Not now. If you would have asked me that, and I'm also tenured now.
Okay.
Like, it's been a year now.
Congratulations.
Nice.
So now I can say, sure, it was great. But I wish that I would have been more open to different experiences. And like, I've been able to create things now, but so you know what? It's not even a question of do I regret going tenure track. I regret not listening to myself because I probably would have ultimately ended up where I am now. But I was so concerned about what others thought I should have been doing that I was not listening to myself. And so I'm going to always regret being influenced just because I didn't have that confidence in my ability to do something differently. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, definitely.
What advice would you give anyone thinking of going into grad school?
Know your why. Like, definitely know why you want to go to grad school. I have so many friends that will say, I think I'm going to get my PhD. I'm like, why? And they can't tell me why, because like for some people, it sounds good. Or you feel like, well, it's just the next step. Like I have my master's degree. I'm smart. I should have a PhD. It's a lot of work. And when you're getting your PhD, most of the time you are flat broke. It's an investment. And it's not just an investment of money, but you have to figure out, okay, if I really want to get into this work and be an expert in this field, how do I balance like when I want to grow up my family or find a partner, and making sure that my partner understands the demands on me and that they can be the support that I need. There's so many different decisions that you have to make that, to me, saying you want to get a PhD just because you want to get a PhD, that's not a well thought out plan. So really be clear on your why, because that's what's going to keep you to get to the end goal. Because it's not about being super smart. To me, it's about being able to have patience and perseverance. As long as you keep on showing up, you will get it done. Because all of us, if you are getting a PhD, most of us have definitely completed an undergraduate degree, and most of us a master's degree. So you can do the coursework. It's when you get to that dissertation,
that's just you
of a dissertation, and it is just you, that you have to come back to your why. If not, you may say, I'm done with this. This is not for me.
That's for all the ABD people out there.
So know your why going into it. And again, if that why changes, be flexible with it, but you have to start out really knowing why. And I will also say, when you're looking at different programs, I do believe that representation matters. So that may not mean that person has to look like you. I found but it is important. But there's other things that you want to look at. Like, is there anyone in the department that's doing the work that I ideally would like to do, and doing it in the way that I ideally would like to do it, right? So think about mentorship. Don't just think about the prestige of the institution or the lack thereof. Think about who's there, who's doing the work that you want to do. And again, going back to your why. So you're really clear on why you're doing it in the first place.
And so I guess this is just a little fun question. If your doctoral experience was a book, what would you title it?
What in the world? What in the world?
I love it. I think that's what we're going to call this episode.
It was always something, right? It was a roller coaster. And some of the rides, if I had known I don't want to get on that ride. I want to get on that one. That one looks safer, right? But at the end of the day, it was really, I grew so much. And I'm glad that I did it, because I had people who did ask me why. And again, I love where I'm from, but I have people, you already, you have your master's degree, you're being greedy. Like, why are you going to leave, North Carolina? Why are you going to leave your job to get a PhD? You have a kid to be thinking about. And I'm like, I am thinking about my child, right? So it was an experience, but it's one that I do not regret. But it was definitely a what in the world. Like every morning, what in the world is going on? What's wrong with these people? Or these people are great. It just depended on the day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Payton-Foh, for spending time with us. We have learned so much. We feel affirmed by a lot of the things you were saying.
Awesome.
And that wonderful book recommendation. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really wanted to say just thank you for this space and being able to share. And I appreciate and value the work that you're doing, because I do think that, the more opportunities that we have to kind of share and learn and discuss, the more that we'll feel supported, in our programs and outside of our programs. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell button, and the like button. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram. We are @_color of success. Bye-bye now.